Mike, great to have you here for a very much deserved Hall of Fame induction at your alma mater at the University of South Carolina. And just a couple thoughts that we can share with fans and as to what this place meant to you during your time here and since you've left.
First of all, I'm very excited to be back. Over the years, I've been gone, I think 38 years now. I haven't been able to make it back a ton because of playing in the NBA and coaching in the NBA. I was back for Coach McGuire's dedication, a couple of months ago. I've been back a few times. Unfortunately, one also for his funeral. But over the years, gosh, I've probably only been back like 5 or 6 times because of my schedule. So it's been fun to get back, and the last year twice now, and see old teammates and friends, and just people I haven't seen for such a long time. So it's fun to be here.
That's tremendous. It's one of the things that I've learned firsthand since being here was just what an unbelievable impression Coach McGuire made in this community in his time here. How did he impact you in your transition?
It was really interesting. Being a Catholic high school guy from New York City, it was the school that I wanted to come play at. Yet I didn't think I was good enough to play here. At the time, they were, probably like a top 5 team. And my senior year is when I really took off. I had scholarship offers as a junior, but it wasn't until my senior year in high school that I kind of matured and had 150 offers. But at the time, South Carolina didn't really recruit me heavily, and it wasn't until after the season that I played in all these all-star games and did really well in the all-star games. And there was kind of a mix-up in recruiting along the way. And anyway, I was going to go to Duke, and UB Brown recruited me at Duke. And I went and had my visit. I'm going back to the airport, and UB said to me, goes, so Mike, what do you think? I said, Coach, I'm signing on a dotted line the first day I can sign. He goes, I thought you might say that. I've got to let you know that I'm leaving to go to the pros. Wow. And I said, wow, okay, well, I'm not going to Duke. And so he said, well, let me give you one bit of advice. He says, I guarantee you, he says, do not pick a school on depending whether you'll play there or not. I guarantee you, wherever you go, you'll play. So I went home, and I told my parents. So I said to him right away, I said, I'm going to South Carolina, because I believed him. He recruited me. I really enjoyed, our whole time together, and I just believed him. And I said, I went home. I told my parents. I said, I'm going to South Carolina. And my other school was University of Pennsylvania with Chuck Daly as the coach.
Wow.
And so I got home and I told my parents, and they said, wait a second, Duke, Pennsylvania is an Ivy League school. That's where we really wanted you to go to school. Now you should go to Pennsylvania. And I said, we argued back and forth for about an hour. And finally I said, look, I'm a good student. I think I can get good grades wherever I go to school. But if you want me to go to Penn, I'll go to Penn. But I just have to let you know I want to be a professional basketball player. And if I don't make it, I'm going to blame you for the rest of my life. And they said, well, have a good time at South Carolina. So, I came down here as a freshman and started. It was the first year freshman could play varsity. I started in the backcourt with Kevin Joyce and Brian Winters and Alex English with the forwards, and Danny Traylor was our center. And just it was such a great year, and it couldn't have worked out better.
Yeah, that's been such a fun thing for me is to get to know you and get to know Kevin and Alex English and just the unbelievable group of guys. And I knew Coach Cremens from just him recruiting guys that played for me in high school and so forth. So getting to know that unbelievable family atmosphere that you guys had. Was that something Coach McGuire kind of bred into you guys and brought you guys together?
Well, I think it was interesting. Some of it happened naturally. It was definitely Coach doing a lot of that. I mean, he was really more of the type of guy who was a great recruiter, brought everybody together. And I think when I played on the team, out of the 15 guys, 11 or 12 were from New York. So it was kind of like, they call it the Underground Railroad from New York to South Carolina. And so we had this kind of built-in fraternity. Guys, knew each other's schools and, kind of saw each other play along the way. I actually was best friends. Brian Winters was 2 years older than me, and I was best friends with his brother, who was my age. And I used to go out to Rockaway Beach every Friday night and spend the night at Brian's house. And I'd play one-on-one with Brian Winters every Friday night in the summer for like 2 years, and never beat him one time. Game would be to 15. I could be up 13 or 14, 6 or 7, and somehow he'd always get the ball back and run a string off. And it wasn't until after my senior year I graduated that I beat him when I was already committed to South Carolina. And to me, that was a big night, when I beat Brian Winters one-on-one. And when it came down to my visit here, Coach McGuire says to Brian, he goes, "Wait a second." First time he heard this story, he goes, "You've been playing against this guy for 2 summers every Friday night? Why didn't you come in here and tell me about him?" And Brian's going like, "That's your job. I figured you knew it." And so it was fun. And so I had a great relationship with Brian, and and played together with him for 2 years. It was great. During part of that time, he had mono, which kind of hurt us a little bit, but it was fun. And then getting to know all the other guys, and then for me, being down here, somebody, I think it was Sports Illustrated, did an article on all the New York guys at South Carolina. And so, they asked me, well, what do you think about culture and changes and all these things? And I was sitting there saying, gosh, I loved every bit of it. I mean, I love the weather. I mean, I like the people, I like everything. The only thing I haven't got my hands around the grits. Other than that, I said, to me, it tastes like wallpaper paste. And I said, well, how do you ever taste wallpaper paste? But other than that, it was perfect. It was great.
That's awesome. I remember in the mid-'70s, growing up in Miami, there was never any NBA games on television. So you had to stay awake and watch those tape-delayed 11:30 p.m. on CBS. And I remember staying up late and watching your Sixers. And you guys had some incredible games with Milwaukee, and Brian Winters was with Milwaukee, and unbelievable games. How was that whole experience as a player, making that transition from college to pros?
Well, I was very fortunate. When we were out of the ACC, we were independent. We played TV games, but obviously the ACC at the time was a big drawing card. Now, you guys have the SEC, which is great. But we went through that kind of little bit of that process. But for me, I was drafted 99th pick, sixth round, and of course I thought I should be drafted higher. And part of it was the fact that we didn't think we maybe weren't on TV as much or whatever. But it didn't matter. Bottom line is, when I got to the Philadelphia 76ers with 13 guaranteed contracts on a 12-man roster, but I had a lot of confidence coming in because I'd played after my senior year in one of the All-Star games, a tournament actually in Huntington, Indiana, and I averaged like 38 a game in this tournament, got the MVP, and I'm like, and there was a bunch of guys who were projected first-round picks in that deal, and so I'm like, I know I can play at this level. And then when I got to our training camp for the 76ers, I found that all the things that they were doing, I already knew. I was already prepared, like running fast breaks, running lanes, understanding the concepts, defenses. Even though we played a lot of 2-3 zone when I played here for Coach McGuire, pre-season, we didn't play that way at all. Like, we picked up man-to-man, we pressed full court, we did all these different things. And there wasn't one thing when I got to the pros that I wasn't ready for when I got to that training camp. So, I felt that I'd been coached great through the years. I've obviously had a great high school coach as well, but overall, and then the day-to-day play against the guys that that we had, was terrific.
Kind of throw a curveball at you here a little bit, and being in the NBA for as long as you have been, obviously you follow college basketball. Watching your son play, and if you had to change one rule in college basketball to better prepare kids, I call them kids because they're 18 when they get here, to be able to go play in a man's league in the NBA, what do you think would be the biggest change?
Well, I'm not sure it's college. Maybe it's part college, but like if I was king for a day and I could make one basketball change, I would let kids come out of high school to go to the pros, but they'd have to be drafted in the top 10 or top 14. And after that, guys who you weren't Kobe Bryant, you weren't LeBron James, you weren't Kevin Garnett, then you had to stay, a couple of years, at least 2 or 3 years. And I think what happens then is those guys are better prepared for our league. We get so many guys that get talked into going, trying to turn pro by agents that aren't the top guys, and the only way they can get those kids is basically by telling them at a very early age that I'm going to get you drafted high, and then what happens is they know, well, I'm probably not going to be able to get them drafted high, and what's going to happen is I'm going to get them over to Europe where I get 10% on a contract versus 4%, so I don't get hurt by this at all, and I think that's the biggest change that I would make.
Well, I've kept you long enough here, but I do want to tell you that as a boyhood Sixer fan, respected the way you played the game. As a young aspiring coach, watching your NBA teams play, I've always had tremendous respect for you. And now that I've got the job here at the University of South Carolina, we're working real hard to try and get some other guys to represent this university the way you and all your guys did for Coach McGuire back in the day, and it's great having you back for a weekend, and once again, congratulations on an unbelievable honor, very much deserved.
Well, Frank, thanks so much.
Thank you, Mike.
Great wishes and great luck for you in the coming season.
Appreciate that.